Hello and welcome to Not Quite Otaku Anime Podcast, Episode 6. I'm Joe.
And I'm Brandon.
And today we're going to be doing another episode of Does It Hold Up, which we've done a few of these now. And today we will be talking about an anime, I guess, that is fitting to the time of year that it is. This might go up a little bit later, but it's still spooky season.
Yeah, we thought we'd do something, and although we'll get into talking about that, because although horror is in the name, I'm not sure how fitting it is towards that. But
yeah, that's true.
But yeah, we're going to be talking about a Pet Shop of Horrors.
Yep. So we're going to be talking, going back and looking through that and seeing if it holds up. So to give a little background on it, I guess we'll start there. So this came out in originally 1999, which I'm going to be honest, I swear I thought this was way older. I thought this was like 1992. Yeah. Like when I looked at it and when I thought, I'm like, this looks like early 90s. Nope, 1999. Came out in the US in 2000. It's based on a manga series.
That was also written in the mid-90s. So.
Yeah. So, and I saw some stuff. I mean, I didn't look too hard because we're not going to be talking about much about it, but I just wanted to get some. But it said that there's some stuff that's still going, that's like ongoing stuff. There's like a second kind of...
Yeah, I think there's a Pet Shop of Horrors Tokyo. I think it's kind of like a revamp of it.
Something like that. So it's still around, which is interesting, I guess, to me. Like I said, I was the one who suggested this, and I was trying to think about like why and where I heard of it, and I honestly don't know. Like it could have been like an anime top 10 list probably that I watched on YouTube 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, this is like someone on YouTube recommended this, so I must consume all anime and watch it, and then never did, and then I was like, hey, here's an idea.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I had never heard of this before you had mentioned it, so...
Yeah, I'd be really curious.
It's nice going into something completely blind, though, with no opinions on it whatsoever. Never heard anything about it.
Yeah, it's fun. I actually do like about these, sometimes like when it's different when you go back and look at something that you've actually seen, and that has its own interesting aspects to it, but it is really fun when you're just like, all right, I know nothing about this, let's just go into it and see. And so it's interesting when you talk about then does it hold up, to try to go between the difference of does it hold up based on my nostalgia or based on my past experience, or does it hold up because I know this is from the late 90s and it could be crap. So
yeah. So why don't we go just into it? Do you want to give a little just brief overview of what Pet Shop of Horrors is?
Yeah. So Pet Shop of Horrors, I guess like the quick way to say it is, it's an episodic 4-episode, I believe it was an OVA because I think it just came out on video and stuff. So 4 episodes, episodic. They are connected in the sense of there's a pet shop in Chinatown. It takes place in the U.S. And the count, he runs this pet store, and various people get these pets, and supernatural things occur. I think that's probably like right. I mean, is there anything else you would say to?
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. And it's very, very much an anthology. The only connecting tissue is the pet shop itself.
And you're the investigator.
Yeah.
There's an investigator and who's looking into all these things. All of a sudden, all these supernatural occurrences and I guess crimes. It's weird because they're like someone's dead, but no one ever seems too interested in like it's not like he's investigating a murder. It's weird because he'll be like
he's investigating a string of unsolved mysteries basically, and the pet shop is the connecting tissue, but like no one cares. No one at his department in the police, and I believe this is supposed to be L.A. I'm not sure if they ever say that or like.
Oh, I guess
basically
that would make
like an L.A. equivalent
sense in terms of the scenery and setup.
Yeah, but
it is in New York's Chinatown. I know that.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah. But and no one in his police department cares to listen to him, and they're just like, get me some real evidence. And
yeah, it's weird that there's like dead people, and like they'll be like he'll be talking about it and be like, there's it's that count, and it's like no, it's not. But then there's also no urgency to also solve the murder then, or they'll be like, well, we found the body.
Yeah,
I guess it was something crazy happened, and it's just like that's it. All right.
Well, and that's I think more nature of this is about, like I said, it's an anthology series. It's about each individual new story they tell you each week, and the count and Leon is the detective. You know, he's the young ace detective type. It seems like that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
They're the only real recurring characters, at least on like a consistent,
And
important to the
Jill,
story basis.
did you notice? Okay, just call back to our Resident Evil
that it's
episode.
Leon and Jill? Yeah.
Leon and Jill
Yeah.
are the two police. I was like, I don't know if that was. I wondered if that was actually intentional. With, I don't know. But anyway, I was like,
Yeah, you'd have to look at when the Resident Evil stuff was made.
well, Resident Evil was what, like 96?
And
The first one, Jill was, or Resident Evil 2 was, I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole different thing.
But yes, I did notice that.
Okay. Anyway, but yes, there's basically, they're like the two recurring main characters is Leon and the Count, and they have this sort of kind of funny relationship actually. You know, how Leon will try to, they're like, oh, you know, the Count really likes sweets, and then he'll bring him some stuff, and it's to describe, I guess, the Count, he's a sort of a feminine character who isn't bad. You know what I mean? You would think, based on Pet Shop of Horrors and the guy who runs it, that this would be some evil. Nothing he's really doing is nefarious. You know,
he seems very much like almost supernatural observer type, where you know, like he'll give people what they want, but what they want is bad for them type of thing, and he knows what he's doing, but also. Yeah, it's an ill-intentioned. He talks about people as he uses the word humans a lot, where he's like, "Oh, human people are like this, and human children are like this." So yeah, I think they're really trying to enforce that.
He definitely, I guess I'm trying to think of the word to say. Maybe feeds off of, or at least indulges human nature's negative sides. You know, he knows that people are more inherently going to do certain things, and he'll say, look, if you just do these 3 things that I tell you to do, like, you're going to be fine, and you'll have the thing that you want. It might not be exactly the way you want it, but you still have the thing.
It's very much, and I think this was a bit repetitive throughout, like it's very much a monkey's paw type story, and all four of them.
What is monkey's paw? I don't actually know that reference.
Okay, so that's like an old, I don't know the exact origins of it, but it's you wish on a monkey's paw, and it grants your wish, but the outcome isn't the way you wanted it.
Okay.
So yeah, like I'm trying to think of a good example, but like you wish someone, like you wish for a promotion, and then the person who held that job gets killed. Like that.
Like, I didn't want it that way.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, you wanted the promotion, and you never specified how you got.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And
yeah,
it's at least I think 3 of the 4 of these tales follow that story arc pretty directly. Where
the first 3, like I'm guessing you're saying, like the first 3 episodes, which
no,
I'm glad.
The third one I think is the one that's different, the one with the actor.
Oh yeah, that's right. I see how you're saying it's different. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I see. Because there was just, I felt like the 4th episode had its own little kind of wrinkle on the formula.
It did a little bit, but
I don't know if it's that much.
Yeah, but I mean, we can. I guess we can go right into it if you want to. Talk about the first episode.
Yeah, I guess we'll kind of maybe we can just talk about the episodes a little bit. They're short, it's brief, and then get into some of the stuff just in general about the show. You know, what comes up, what stood out, and all that stuff. So, so we got the first episode is it takes place. There's 2 parents who their daughter died and they want her back, basically. And so what the Count does is he will then sell them a pet, and everyone's like, oh, I'm going to sell you this rabbit, for example, in this episode. And then they go into this back room and find out it's someone who looks exactly like their daughter. And he gives them don't show her to anyone, don't only feed her water and vegetables, and what was the other one? There's a third one. It's not that important.
I don't remember the third.
Anyway, so
the don't show them to anyone is always one of the contract rules.
Yes.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and so then there's usually a couple things, and this is sort of the formula it follows with each episode, is that he gives them this contract, and he says, okay, you sign this contract, and, this will happen. So, of course, what do the people do? They don't follow the contract. And what ends up happening is they feed her, she wants sweets, and so they give her sweets, and then she turns into this.
Well, and that's where it like turns into, because it's the whole time the Count talks about the Alice is the name of the girl, and he says, this is a rabbit. I'm giving you a rabbit. Rabbits eat vegetables and drink water, and only give this girl vegetables and water because it's
Oh,
a
and make
rabbit.
sure she never goes hungry. I think that was the other one.
No,
Anyway.
that was in the second one, I think.
I feel like then it was. I think
It might have
something
been
similar.
it might have been recurring though.
There was like a repeat on two of them or something, or they
Yeah.
were very similar. Where it almost sounded like the same thing. Anyway, keep
But
going.
but he never says like, here's, I have this girl for you, or here's your little girl. He says it's very clear this is a rabbit, and I think it's very much a, these animals, to who needs to see them a certain way, sees them as people, but I don't think it's meant to be seen as like a literal transformation.
So do you don't think it's so when they have their daughter who then you find out originally had died of drug overdose, she was addicted, and she had been spoiled and given everything she ever wanted, including the
mom gave her opium, presumably.
yeah, that's what I figured. And so she needed that fix, and then that was the thing that killed her as she's in her hospital bed. But
And the moral of the story is the mom never learned and continued to spoil her new child, and
yes.
led to the same outcome. And then her husband was killed by the rabbit, which is what this girl was,
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, so you think that, like, for example, when he brings them into the back room and shows them, although visually you're seeing the person, you think it's only those characters who want it to be that person are seeing it,
and the count,
and the count.
that way,
But
I
in
think.
reality, they might be holding a rabbit, or they're, because they walk around.
Yeah,
and they talk.
it's
weird.
I know it's not meant. I don't think it's meant to be directly definable.
Yeah, because in
how
other
they
episodes it's different a little bit.
show it, but it's very much, you never see any other characters. I think with the exception of maybe Leon in the first episode when the house is really dark, but you never really see any of the other characters outside of these contracts recognize any of these animals as people.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is none of the people violate the fact that it was shown.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's like the difference between someone sees them and then someone actually showing it. Because actually in the first episode, it starts off with a guy who had gotten this tiger, and I think it was a paper tiger. But
Yeah.
it was like, painting.
Yeah, it was 100% what that was.
And then he comes in and goes, hey, this tiger didn't do this, whatever. I showed it to my friends. And the count's like, you weren't supposed to do that. And then it comes out of the painting picture, and then it kills the guy. And so that was the only time. But everyone else, if anyone saw anything, it was because they invaded the space.
Yeah.
So, yeah, incidental.
Yeah.
It wasn't that someone presenting it to him. So I guess that was, by definition, not violating the contract.
Yeah.
So yeah, first episode, it sets things up. I think maybe this is, so, I think this actually might be a good way to go with this, because honestly, these are very like episodic monster of the week almost. I mean, in a way, episodes. So I think you have first episode, it sets it up with the rabbit. The second episode sets it up with,
It's this singer and her manager got married.
Yes.
Singer drowns on their wedding night. Or idol, I think is the word they use, but I think it's interchangeable, I believe.
Yeah, she actually ends up throwing herself off of the cruise ship that they're on, and you find out that her manager was only with her to try to help his career essentially, and he had been in love with someone else, her friend. And then he says, I'm actually still really in love with you, and the singer sees this happen, and that's why she throws herself off. Do you have something to add? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's about right. I mean, he does say it's more like indirectly, yes, helping his career, but it basically says she gets whatever she wants and she wants him. So he's obliging her, like, as a professional relationship, almost.
And so then, he falls in love with her. She turns into a mermaid, or essentially the pet that he gets is a mermaid version of her.
Yes.
The count has. And then the third episode is with the failed actor who got typecast in this one role. He had this sort of iconic space role.
He's basically Mark Hamill in Star Wars. Is the
Oh,
illusion they were really going for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't even make that. Yeah, because Mark Hamill has, he's done incredible things with voice acting.
Yeah.
But in terms of actual roles, yeah, he's only Luke Skywalker, and that is basically what this guy played.
Yeah, 100%.
So he ends up he is divorcing his wife. He lives alone now, and he has surrounded by reptiles, and then gets Medusa, which, if anyone knows the story about Medusa, is that if anyone who looks into her eyes will turn to stone. The quick version of it.
Yeah.
And so there's that. And then the final episode is the Kirin, I think I'm saying it right.
Yeah, I think Kirin, something like that.
Kirin, yeah, it's which is a mythological creature from a lot of Asian mythology, like Chinese and Japanese mythology. It appears in both, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and it usually, I believe it appears before the death of a ruler, I think, is the traditional myth behind it. But
So it sets these scenarios up, and I guess like my biggest, and in that one, it is a young politician who is looking to move up to eventually become president, and his friend who helps him out, and then also is I guess secretly in love with his wife, who doesn't always get the attention and the things that she wants.
Yeah. And she's pretty openly in love with him.
Yeah, that's true. And
like,
it's pretty obvious that they're like he's out doing whatever too, because she's like, oh, another girl. And at first I was like, who is this? And I was like, oh, it's his wife. Oh, ooh.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's kind of the scenario, and then each one has their own misfortune. So, well, I feel like I've been talking a lot. I want to, if you want to explain.
Yeah.
It,
So, like I said, like the first couple, the first story, they get the rabbit. We kind of went over that, and the second one, this man gets the mermaid, and then falls in love with the mermaid, even though he didn't love the woman. And at the end, I think he forgets to feed it, so it gets hungry and it eats him.
Because he's in this like weird. They're like, I don't know, are they doing it? Like, who knows? But he still has his pants on. But like,
that's the whole thing is, he doesn't feed the mermaid, quote unquote, because then he gets eaten by a giant fish. That mermaid was a giant fish.
Yeah.
Like, and his wife's remains are in the stomach as well. And that's where I really lead to, like, these aren't really people. They aren't mystical creatures. It's more some like visual magic kind of thing going on, where
because
he sees this giant fish as a mermaid of his wife. And
because with the rabbit episode, so what ends up happening is she eats the sweets, and then her stomach gets all messed up, and then all of a sudden these little green babies come out, and then the little green babies end up, when Leon comes with the count to the house, they show up to be rabbits, and I was like, rabbits, they reproduce like rabbits, and he even makes a reference to that. And so then you had this visualization of these kind of creepy little green baby things, and then they were actually rabbits. So that makes sense. And then with the Medusa, when they find the actor dead and they find this reptile that's turned to stone, it's just on his neck, but it was really her, because he wanted to look into her eyes that one time, knowing what would happen.
Yeah, and that's why I think this one's a little different, because like in the third story, so this is about the actor who is basically obsessed with reptiles, and that's why his wife leaves him. So he goes to the pet shop, gets Medusa from the Count, and they legitimately like have a mutual loving relationship.
Yeah.
And he clearly like loves reptiles, and that this is actually what he wanted. Whereas I think with the rest of them, it's kind of they didn't get what they wanted, but he wanted a pet reptile he could actually love, basically, and he got that. And I think it hurt him so bad that he could not provide for her.
Because he doesn't land the gig that he needed.
Yeah, so he doesn't get the gig he needed. He's going to be kicked out of his apartment, can't take care of the animals anymore. And he legitimately loved her. And so he looked into her eyes on purpose. It wasn't a lustful, it wasn't I just need to see him once, it'll be okay. He knew full well what was going to happen. And then she then looked in a mirror and killed herself, because it was, it was a Romeo and Juliet
kind of thing going on. Yeah. No, that's right. That's true. There was a different, and then with the last episode with the Kirin, that one was, I think, different because there's a lot of, it was the most like removed supernatural character. Yeah. It was kind of like
that, and that one very much seemed like it was like almost like, yes, there was some magical powers going on there.
Yeah, because it causes it causes a school bus to start driving erratically on this cliff, and so they try to, the two friends, I gotta look up their names. Roger's one of them, and I gotta remember the other one.
And the other one was it was a bit effeminate, I believe.
Kelly.
Kelly, yep.
Yeah, usually. Yeah, so that was Kelly and Roger, and so Kelly is the friend, Roger is the politician who's on the rise, and they have the Kyrian in the back of the car at this point, and they have to save this school bus of kids, and so they try to kind of drive it so that it goes into the cliffside, but they end up going off the cliff, crashing, and both land there, and the Kyrian comes to Kelly and asks, basically like, what do you want? And first he said, I want Roger to be powerful, and then he says, no, I want his wife Nancy to be happy. And there's a twist.
Yeah, because it.
I don't know if we want to say the twist.
Yeah, but
I guess we'll leave that in case someone wants to watch this.
But that was the one of the 4 stories that very much seemed. The other ones seem like almost allusions to the supernatural, but it's more just like mind tricks being played. Whereas this seemed like they were visited by a god almost.
Yeah, for sure. And so it kind of follows this formula. And I guess then my question to you would be like, what did you think of the formula? How did you think it worked? Did it land with you? Did you feel a little, what were you feeling as you?
Like I said, my biggest complaint would be like, even by the second episode, you could tell what was gonna come next. They use the same twist every time, basically.
You could telegraph things from a mile away.
Yeah,
I would call them out before they happened.
Yeah,
as we were watching,
and it makes me wonder if that is the entirety of what the manga is, because this is a very small chunk of the stories. I didn't figure out exactly how many, but they said that like each chapter. Each chapter was one story like this, and it has 10 volumes, so there's probably like 50, 60.
Yeah, I think it was like 40 something I saw. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, so, the fact that these are the 4 they picked to do is a little strange to me, unless all of them are that way, in which case it's a little repetitive, and the only thing that really was intriguing to me the whole time, I really did like episode 3, but outside of that, I think Leon and the Count's interactions were the only really intriguing thing after the first episode, because then after the first episode you're just like, oh, I'm just watching the same story reskinned.
Yeah, it does feel that way. Also, like, one thing I noticed, there's this little weird kind of, I guess, chimera thing that flies around with the kind of, it looks like a rabbit and a bat and something else mixed together. Yeah. And nobody acknowledges it. No one says anything about it. I'm like, you guys are worried about all these supernatural things, and this thing literally flies up and you see it and nothing. It's just weird. I don't know what, and it's never explained, which I guess is kind of like, it's not even really acknowledged. So again, it could be a supernatural thing that no one sees. I don't know.
And I think that's a problem with this being a 4-episode product of something that's much larger. These are all things that I assume are fleshed out in the original story, that because this was only, I believe, planned to be what it is. I tried to do some research to see if it this was an early run and they were trying to pick it up for more or trying to make something of it, but nothing I found really indicated that. I think someone just liked this and wrote this, and this is all they wanted to do. Yeah,
and I guess the other thing that goes to it, you mentioned it when we started recording, is it's called Pet Shop of Horrors, but horror, it can be a lot of different things. There's nothing scary about it.
I would call this mystery.
Yes, supernatural.
If I were to put a genre on it.
There's some gore. There's some violent, there's some, you see like body parts and things and blood, but it's, there's nothing scary, but I do have a funny story about that. So it's not scary, except if you go to sleep at night like I did and woke up that night and I looked over at Alyssa, my wife, and the little green people things I told her about this, the little green babies. Well, when I looked, it looked like like an adult woman version of that looking right at me, and it freaked me out. And I was like, I had to like calm myself. I'm breathing heavy. So while watching the anime, I was never scared. That night, I had that horrible nightmare, and I was like, it took me like a minute to finally calm down and fall asleep because I was seeing things, and then I came to and it was fine. Anyway, I just thought that was like really funny because I remember even going, after watching it, we're like, well, that wasn't very scary. And that night, like,
yeah, and I don't think
course.
it attempts to be. It's not like it was trying to be a scary thing that just didn't hit the mark. Like that's just not what it is.
Just feels misleading.
Yeah, the name might be a little misleading.
It's like,
but
Little Shop of Horrors isn't really scary either.
Yeah,
like crazy things happen. A plant eats a bunch of people, but
it's like a comedy basically.
Well, that is
that is not this.
Yeah, no.
This
there's some funny
would
stuff.
be this would be like mystery, and like I said, the interactions between the Count and Leon, those are often entertaining.
Yeah,
chuckled a few times at those,
and I think some of the musings on human nature that the Count has are actually very interesting and very, I'm trying to think. There was one thing he said that I really found interesting. Oh, I didn't write exactly what it is, but what I like is that he kind of like leaves, the Count always seems to leave a like level of ambiguity in things. So what I do like, and we kind of talked about, is that you never get the sense that he's fully bad or fully good. And I do find that more interesting than a clear-cut good and bad guy, because I think it would be even way less interesting if it was just like, this guy's evil. It's not. And I think that's what makes it watchable, for even though it's only 4 episodes. I mean, you could very easily just be like, I'm done with this after 1. So
yeah, he's a mischievous observer at worst. I think is at least what he's portrayed as in this, and I think he's a very interesting character. And I think while Leon himself is kind of a generic like, I'm the American detective, I'm gonna run in here, start shooting my gun. Like,
yeah,
I trust my instincts. That's it. Like, he plays off really well with the Count when they're together. Yeah. Like, I think it works really well together. But yeah, that's the only thing that really kept me going with it. And I would, like, if there was more, I'd keep watching it because of that. And, you know, if the manga is kind of not that heavy, I might go check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where as I watched it too, I thought, would this be interesting as a series, longer running? I mean, there are anime that are episodic that have worked. I don't know, Mushishi just came to mind when I was thinking about that, where that is just singular. Kino's Journey.
Kino's Journey is much
another
like
one that's pretty much like it. So like, you can get away with doing, you know, episodic nature, but there would definitely need to be something that shifts it into the next gear, because otherwise you're just gonna, like I said, we were saying, it's kind of like, all right, I see this coming, I know what's gonna happen. And it did throw a couple wrinkles in for the 4 episodes, but you know, it's nothing like,
but yeah,
I still could telegraph everything.
Yeah, you would have to go away a little bit from this same story formula, either that or introduce a more overarching plot. Because they kind of allude to it a little bit. Like, they definitely grow Leon and the Count's relationship a little bit each episode, but it just leaves you wanting more. Like, there's no payoff ever. There's no anything close to a resolution. It's just kind of like.
And I guess that's the thing about it, is that there is no payoff. There's no resolution to it. It's just 4 standalone episodes, and it's, while the 4th episode does feel like the highest stakes and the most conclusive in a sense. You know, you're using a mythical creature as opposed to a rabbit, you know, so that makes, you know, but it's just like, it just left you going, okay, so that's it. And
and this episode's over and there's no more. All right.
You know, and the credits roll and that's it. And you're done. And I think
you did, like, I was so surprised you didn't even get like a little bit of Count musing at the end of it or something to feel like a conclusion. It's just like, the story's over and that's it.
Yep. Hope you enjoyed. I think it'd be interesting in the era of a lot of things being remade. I just was thinking, like, Fruits Basket has been revamped. When They Cry is just coming out at this time as of recording. They're coming out with that, which I actually started watching the original, which is pretty cool. I think you should check it out. But you know, would it be interesting to see this get like a modern update? I think it might be cool. You know, someone else take a crack at it.
I mean, I'd watch it. I don't know if there's an audience for it.
I don't think anyone's out there banging on the...
Just trying to do a little bit of research on what the launch of this was like. There's no one on the internet talking about it.
The rabid Pet Shop Horrors fan base just crying for a second set of OVAs. That doesn't exist.
Yeah, so I wouldn't expect it to ever happen. And like, I'd watch the first episode if they ever did that, but I wouldn't be like, oh, I can't wait for this to come out.
Yeah.
It's like out of my curiosity because I've watched this one. Sure, I'd check it out.
Yeah.
But
And going to that, because of a lot of remakes, part of it is changing the voice and changing the animation. Like I said, I thought this anime was way older than it is. Animation's, it's very 90s. It's not always great. I mean, the character designs are good. Like the Count's a very interesting character, well designed. He has the two different colored eyes. I noticed. There's like some cool things. And like Leon looks kind of like Terry Bogard, kind of, doesn't he?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
I think that's pretty fair. And and while the animation, it was clearly like, I think it looked pretty good for when it was made. There's not a lot of motion going on. There's a lot of still shots and a lot of just barely like lip moving type stuff. So
yeah, it feels like it might have had like been on a little bit of a budget. Like, I mean, if you just thinking to compare it to something like Cowboy Bebop that came out around the same time, which some of it has aged a little bit, the animation, but like not nearly as much as this.
Yeah. If you had told me this was from the late 80s, early 90s, I'd believe you.
Yeah, that's exactly the era I thought that was set in. So that was, and voice acting. Well, also I just want to say too, I think that the like some of the character designs, like the mermaid, the Kirin as a child too, is a really good design. So there's like some really good, solid, strong stuff, and then there's just like a lot of
yeah, and I would probably chalks it up to the manga probably being well drawn, and because there's where those design concepts were probably coming from.
Yeah, I think it does have a lot to do with the artist themselves.
Yeah,
but sometimes it doesn't always translate. Sometimes people don't get it right. So
that's very true. And I think they did but like you said, for the budget they had, which to me seemed like it was probably quite low. I think they did a fine job. Wouldn't have any major complaints with it. Just definitely looked old. Oh, I do have one. This is my personal gripe. So I don't know if you remember this, but probably sometime in the past year I was watching Haikyuu, and the volleyball one, so the whole when they're on the opposite side of the volleyball net and their eyes are popping through it. They did that with the Count's.
Like you can't unsee it.
The Count's face, the hair, where his eye is his eye is drawn on the outside of his hair, and it's just like it's awful. I can't look away. I hate it.
It's really bad when there was one part I noticed it too. It was one part I noticed where it was a kind of like a more medium shot, a little bit further away, like it wasn't a close-up. Yeah. And so it just was, the hair is not as detailed, so it's kind of just this black wall and then an eye popping through it. And it was definitely when it was the most noticeable. And then I was like, oh, but it's not nearly as bad and unseeable as in Haikyuu when you see the net thing. It's like you'll never be able to unsee it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then the voice acting, it's like, there's it's okay. Like some of it doesn't age. I mean, like, I don't know, the stereotypical Chinese accent in 2020. I don't know how well that flies.
That would fly, and it was what it was for the era. And there were a couple.
It didn't feel like it was attempting to be a caricature. So I appreciate that. It did. I guess it was trying to distinguish between the American and the not. But like at the same time, I personally didn't need the giant flashing light that like we're in Chinatown. Like I got that. There's one line though where when the guy goes, he's like, "It doesn't work," and so there's a couple lines like that where they're like really weird and awkward.
And there was some writing issues in the translation. And it was just little things like they used patricide instead of matricide at one point, and just like where they got words wrong.
No,
where
sentences that made sense in the context.
No, it didn't. No.
Oh, okay. I thought because
I went and rewatched it a couple times just to make sure, and I was like, no, this okay. This doesn't make sense, and that's probably why it was able to slip through, because it kind of seemed like it did, but then
because they were talking about the dad being dead at the time, so I thought it was like.
But they were talking about the rabbits killing their mother.
Yes, and now okay. That makes sense.
And there was a couple other times where I noticed where sentences just were like, I don't think that's right. I think that's not proper English, and they're kind of like, I don't know. It was just little things that I noticed and kind of bugged me. One I picked up on too,
where I was like, this translation's a little. There's
Google Translate is what it felt like a couple times
prior to Google. Yeah. Like, I don't know what 1999's version of that is, but
yeah.
There was kind of with the voice acting too is that in general it's good, but then when there were moments where emotions needed to really run high, which I think this is a lot of credit to modern day anime, is that people are really starting to get when it's like a high emotion moment, it actually is, nowadays when you'd watch a dub, it feels authentic and believable.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of times where I think why so many people are so averse to dubs still and were from the 90s is that back then, if you asked anyone to have any type of heightened emotion of any kind, whether it was happiness, sadness, or anger, or whatever, it just came out like this really, like there was almost like it's like something holding them back in their throat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where they just couldn't let out the emotion, or they couldn't really get the nuance to it, because I think voice acting wasn't as, obviously as much of a thing as it is today.
Yeah,
And,
you didn't
dubbing,
have the
you didn't
trained talent you have nowadays, because there
Yeah.
probably wasn't much of a financial incentive to be that trained talent.
Well, and there wasn't really, a market. I mean, these things were being made where it was still so niche, and so people would be like, I mean, I remember hearing a thing about Steve Bloom talking about how he got, I think, one of his first gigs, and it was just kind of like someone was like, hey, you have a nice voice, kind of like, you want to do this? And it was like some guy recording stuff for like Crispin Freeman, who was doing like regional theater, and one of the guys he knew was saw him watching anime. It was like, oh, you like anime? Like, you want to record some of this stuff? And there was like a place somewhere in New York at the time that was recording. And so it was just kind of like this whereas now it's Funimation, Crunchyroll, they have their own streaming apps, for Christ's sake. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's a huge thing, and
Yeah,
it's not, it's not
they have studios that everyone comes to work at.
right. And so, I guess, yeah, you don't always have the, so going back to Pet Shop of Horrors, the problem with that is then there's these moments of high emotion and they just fall flat. And I think it sort of kills the tension, and same with it being telegraphed. So you have this like combination of meh voice acting at moments that need it better, and being able to really see where the story's going, that I never feel like there's a moment of tension, which to me, if it's not going to be horror in the sense of I'm jumping out and scaring you, or extreme gore, it's the tension and it's the anxiety that makes something scary. And if there's none of that, then again, it still kind of just feels like what you're saying, sort of like a supernatural whodunit mystery.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and that's what it is. And I don't, like I said, I'm not familiar enough with this product because I just learned about it, a couple months ago or whatever it was when you told me about it. That just because horror's in the name, I don't know if it ever purported itself to be a horror anything.
I mean, did you see the font that is on the cover? That screams like
I guess maybe. I don't know.
And I don't know. I mean, it's whatever. It's got a lot of red on it too, like all those things. But
that could be marketing, U.S. marketing.
That's true.
Teams
They probably could
misunderstanding the original product.
Yeah. So I guess anything else that you want to talk about in terms of it that stood out, or questions you have for me, or
no? I don't know. I think that just about wraps up what I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can go deep into each episode, but if you're gonna watch this, I feel like you should watch it, and I think we probably spoiled 3 of them anyway. So oh well.
Right.
Whoops.
So like I said, the first one spoils the rest of them anyway.
That's true. Yeah, you watch the first one, you're gonna know where it's going.
I know what's happening next.
Yeah, you're not watching it for the mystery. It's the one mystery thing that I could even solve, and so I'm the one who, when we would watch Case Closed, or in case anyone's upset about it, Detective Conan, but I knew it is, but anyway, when we watched that, I'd be like, well, I couldn't figure it out. And you'd be like, I figured all of them out. And I was like, what? How? So if we're going to say, since this is called Does It Hold Up, if you had to say if it holds up or not, and in that sense, maybe is worth your time, what would your verdict be?
I would say no, it doesn't hold up. I wouldn't recommend this to a general audience. I think it is a little boring. I like the Count character, and that's about all I liked about it. So I would say no. It does not hold up. What about you?
I'd have to agree with you. I'd say if I have to put a yes or a no, I'd say no, it doesn't hold up. It's dated, in a lot of ways. And it doesn't have a plot that's interesting enough.
No, I mean,
grip you. I mean, the
yeah.
one positive is it is only 4 episodes. It's
Yeah.
about the length of a movie. So if you do watch it, you're not investing a whole lot of time and you can't be that mad.
Yeah, and
But
I'm pretty sure they're a solid only 20 minutes each too. They're short
yeah,
episodes
like
as
if
well.
you don't even include the credits of each episode, yeah, it's probably like 20 minutes
But
each.
like I think that's the biggest problem is there's no meat to each individual episode. You don't even get time to care about these people that they're telling you the story about. So yeah, I was just disinterested pretty much the whole time.
Yeah. So I would say it doesn't hold up. If I had to give anyone a reason to, I mean, I can't even really say that I'd say that there's a reason you should watch it. You know, like, even if you're curious about stuff, because it's not even like it's an interesting mystery anime. It's not even like it's really scary because it's not really horror, even though it's got it in the name. And like you said, it never gives anything enough time to develop. So it just feels like I'm not mad that I spent an hour plus watching it, but
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
feel like
there's nothing that makes it jump out to anyone that I'd say you gotta take the time to give this one a look, you know?
Yeah, I don't feel like I wasted my time, but at the same time, it's like I could probably spent it doing better things. So
Yeah. I remember I really wanted to play video games while watching it. So that was like when I was like, man, I could be, but we're gonna watch this for the podcast. So, and I was like, I might as well knock them out in one sitting. So, yeah. So I guess that wraps it up for our, which I'm actually shocked that we talked about this show this long. To be honest, I mean, there was a little bit of recap in here, and but even still, I'm just like, whoa. I think this wraps it up then. For our Does It Hold Up with Pet Shop? I almost said Little Shop with Pet Shop of Horrors. Anything you want to just add real quick?
yeah, don't waste your time on this one. I think
don't waste your
you
time.
can pass on this.
So make a hard pass on this one. If you like what you've been listening to, you can follow us on YouTube and you can subscribe to that if you'd like, or comment. We'd like to hear from people. We also have an Instagram and we post stuff every once in a while. So you can check us out there. And yeah, I think that's just about it. So we'll be back with another podcast episode soon and we'll see you next time.
Yep, see you next time.